Hello and welcome. My name is Toasty, and some of you might remember me as one of the hosts from the legendary Arclight Insights podcast. In this video, I'll be showing the Onyxia level from Warcraft Arclight Rumble and how I beat it with a Jaina deck. You can see the deck including talents in the top left, and with nothing more to say, let's hop straight into it. Alright, so one thing to mention beforehand is that I will talk a little bit about the fight itself and how it works, but I won't go into detail with exact timers and so on, as the purpose of this video, after all, is to give you guys a general idea of the level and what strategy we're using. So, there are 3 towers on this map, which are mandatory to conquer, as they are our first line of defense. And right there you can see the first mechanic of the fight, which is the whelp bags. Onyxia will spawn these every now and then on the outer left and right lanes, and after some times the whelps will hatch and go directly for our base, which is why we need to kill them ASAP. We're using Drake and Huntress for this method, but there are other minis that do the job just as good. Now, even though we have some money in the bag, instead of trying to keep our first push alive, we're setting up a second one, as the Huntress kills the last whelps. And here our own whelp bags with the Rookery talent come in handy to take the tower. Our main source of damage on Onyxia herself will be the Execute spell. And this is where Jaina comes into play, as her leader ability boosts every spell that you play by 3 levels. And on top of that, her clear casting talent reduces the cost of every next spell by 1 if you play that spell right after playing Jaina. So that's a way to save a little bit of money. Speaking of which, you might have noticed that we're not playing Harpies with the Trinket Collector talent or the Dark Iron Miner. So the only way of farming the 4 gold nodes on this map is our trusty old friend, the Cobalt Miner.
And his name is John C.
One thing I'd like to mention is the Elven Might talent on our Huntress, which allows us to leave her quite a bit underleveled on level 25, as she still manages to one-hit the first whelp that she throws her glaive at. Now, next to placing whelp eggs between our 2 front towers and throwing executes in Onyxia's face, there isn't really much to do in phase 1 other than defending. So we're placing some last units, and after we then finally hit only for 1/3 of her health, she gets a little angry and does an AoE attack, killing all our minis on her half of the battlefield, including our 2 towers. So that means that the eggs we placed before will hatch into a beautiful flock of dragon whelps, making short work of the towers and quickly reclaiming them. Now, on top of spawning whelp eggs, in phase 2 Onyxia also starts spawning earth elementals every now and then, which also need to be dealt with as quickly as possible, as they demolish our towers or even base in no time when left unchecked. And in phase 3 it gets even harder. So that's why a wise man once said that the Onyxia level is just like
the Fitness Gram Pacer test,
because it...
progressively gets more difficult as it continues.
Alright, enough with the memes. Since our objectives for phase 2 are pretty much the same as for phase 1, that gives me the opportunity to talk a little bit about the other talents that we're using. First of all, probably one of the single strongest talents for this specific level, the Lockpick talent on the Defias Bandits, which nets us an extra 2 gold every time they open a chest. So that means we spend 1 gold playing them and getting 4 gold for a chest, which is the reason that not being able to always farm the nodes before they cap on gold isn't that bad. The Mother Drake talent and the Quill Spray talent are both not bad, but in this fight not really that helpful either, and I believe that the Drake's and Quillboar's respective third talent will be a strong contender for first choice in this fight. So while we're doing our best to defend ourselves from an onslaught of whelp eggs and earth elementals, we again place our own eggs between our front towers in preparation for phase 3. Now, one thing I noticed during progression throughout the fight was that I got the feeling that our executes are dealing a little less damage to Onyxia than in the first phase, and even less in phase 3. And as I'm rewatching this video right now, I noticed that while Onyxia is still sleeping, or well, rather lying down in phase 1, she's now standing, and in the last phase getting into some sort of defensive stance. My best guess is that she gets a straight up damage reduction buff, but as of now I don't think we have any confirmation from the devs on that, so well, all that stays an assumption from my side. So at this point we have roughly 30 seconds left on the clock before we hit the 2-minute overtime. Now we don't get double gold right away, but only for the actual last minute of the fight. So we've done our homework and set up a ton of whelp eggs ready to hatch as we throw down our last execute. Right, checking which lane we should place our cobalt miner in. And now as we hit overtime, we're mentally getting ready to transition into phase 3, because this is where things get really messy. We do the phase switch with a combination of whelps and the Quillboar, as they get a couple of extra hits off during the AoE attack animation. And this is where our last talent plays a crucial role. The Bloodthirsty talent on Execute grants all friendly minions within spell range Bloodlust for 10 seconds, indicated by the red swirlies around them, which increases their attack speed. Onyxia then spawns 2 incredibly powerful Draconic Guardians, and they are a huge pain in the ass to deal with, as they not only have a huge life pool, but also the resist trait, reducing their magical damage taken by 50%, and a strong AoE attack. Luckily for us, we don't need to deal with them, as our strategy relies on us throwing Quillboars, whelps and executes at Oni's face, like SK Gaming's Kevin throwing axes at XPK during the legendary Intel Extreme Masters backdoor. Alright, maybe not exactly like that. We're cycling through our deck like crazy, basically throwing away our 1 gold cost kobolds and bandits to get back to whelps and executes, as the Guardians are slowly but steadily approaching our base, taking one tower after another. As the enemy forces approach our base, we desperately try to get off one last set of bloodlusted whelps, and just barely manage to get the kill before our base falls, but a kill nonetheless. Now, compared to my Tyrion deck that I used to kill Onyxia for the first time, the Jaina setup has a significantly lower army level, due to the reason that we did not have to fight the Draconic Guardians, and simply didn't need our minis to have the stats to stand a chance against them. Right now, to me, it looks like not fighting the Guardians is the most efficient strategy, and I gotta give credit to Soul Reaver, who to my knowledge came up first with a workaround strategy, where he simply bansheed them, allowing him to have an even lower army level than mine. Now, if you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, I would appreciate if you'd give it a like. And if you have any leaders or decks that you want to see, maybe even used on Onyxia, please leave a comment under this video or reach out to me on Discord. You can find me in the official Arclight Rumble Discord channel under the name Toasty. Thanks for watching and see you next time.